Hi, for those of you who I haven't met, I'm Reverend Ken. I have the honor of being senior minister here. And I needed that. Thank you. It's like that reminder of the connection, and listening to you sing it with looking at the pictures behind you of all the people who came before us here. Right? So they don't have to be here on the planet to be the people we need. Right? Everyone on the altar behind me is why this building exists. Right? Instrumental to this community existing. And it goes beyond our community, of course. It goes beyond people we know. It goes something deep in our soul, right? That intimate knowing of strangers. In the year 2000, in Israel, a doctor at a hospital there conducted an experiment around prayer. And he was working in a hospital, and he got a group of volunteers to hold people in prayer. So he had 3,393 people who had been diagnosed with sepsis, an infection, at the hospital. And he had a group of volunteers to pray for these people. They were assigned randomly to this group of people. And they had a control group who weren't prayed for, and a group that was actually prayed for. And they monitored what happened with the patients, how quickly they got over their fever, how long they were hospitalized, and whether they passed away. And the amazing thing is that in the study, in a statistics that beats any coincidence, the people who were prayed for got over their fever quicker and got out of the hospital much more rapidly. In the study, the difference between those who passed away from the infection and those who survived it was significantly insignificant, but more people who were prayed for did live through the infection. But it was amazing in it of itself that their recovery was quicker because they were prayed for. And this was not affirmative prayer. This was just random prayer. We teach, if you don't know, here a method of prayer called affirmative prayer, where we only hold the highest and the best. We don't affirm the negative. We don't affirm the disease. We affirm the healing of the disease. It's a very specific way. But this was a more random study, and it was crystal clear. Now, if you were paying attention, you may have noticed that there's something really strange about this. In the year 2000, in this one hospital in Israel, that they had 3,393 cases of sepsis. Either this is a really bad hospital, or there was something else going on in the world. The thing about this study is that they weren't praying for people who were currently in the hospital. They were praying on a random list of patients who were in the hospital from the year 1990 to 1996. So they had been praying for people who had sepsis either 4 to 10 years before. They were praying for them. And still in that moment, they got better. And this is that in the quantum field, of science, there is no time and space. And we talked about this last week. In the quantum understanding, every possibility exists at any moment until you choose it, until you look at it. So those people who were praying for people who had long since been checked out of the hospital affected the results. And like I said, this is not coincidence or chance. There's no way from this study that it was just a random fluke. So how do we account for this? We're all trained, we all grew up in a world that understands Newtonian physics, meaning that for everything there is an equal and opposite reaction. Something happens, and then we react to it, and we have our experience of it. So we get a promotion. We become happy. We meet the love of our lives. We become overjoyed. We lose 10 pounds. We feel really good about ourselves. Right? All those moments. But in quantum physics, we know that if we feel really good about ourselves, that the other things will happen. That it's not cause and effect, but choice. As we look at it from a perspective from the brain, we get to know, next slide, that the quantum law says that all potentials exist simultaneously. So in this moment, I'm 20 pounds thinner, and I'm this weight. In this moment, I am anything I can imagine, right? You are anything you want to set your eyes on, your heart and your desire to. You're overjoyed. You're peaceful. You're loving. You're compassionate. Or we can be trained by the feelings that we have become used to, ingrained in our consciousness, in our habits of thinking, to be waiting for the next shoe to drop. To looking askance at someone going, last time I spoke to them, they said something nasty to me. What are they going to say today? And withdrawing. We become habitual in our lives, and then we become predictable in what we expect. If we could break this habit of thinking a certain way, of expecting an outcome, expecting someone else to be a certain way, what would be the possibility that would be there for us? So your brain, while we're having technical difficulties, I'm going to affirm that in the quantum field we can start this all over, and I'm going to choose a different outcome. And I'm going to make that happen right now by choosing success for this. So your brain in meditation, one of the best ways to do this is to use meditation. Because what happens in meditation is we get to look at ourselves, we get to look at our feelings, and we get to make new neural pathways. There is a law, next slide, that says, one more? Yes. Cells that wire together fire together. Click again. That means that when we think things over and over and over, it's called Hebbian learning, that it actually makes neural pathways in our brain, and that we constantly become habituated to that way of thinking. So when you were a kid, you were taught things by your parents and your teachers and your environment, and those become your personality. This is the way I always am. This is who I'm meant to be. This is me. Don't expect me to change. Don't we love dating those people? Right? But we are those people. We think that this personality, this mask that we wear, this way of thinking is the real us. But that is an illusion. If you close your eyes right now, I invite you to, just to close your eyes in this minute and ask, if you weren't in this body, in this space right now, who are you? Who's that person deep in your soul? What is it that you're longing for? What is it that you really want to be? So my question is, why aren't you? Why aren't you? Because we believe that we are the product of everything that has brought us to this moment. I invite you to open your eyes again, and quantum physics has fixed this. Right? So when we open our minds to understanding that we don't have to be the person we were 2 seconds ago. We don't have to be the person we were yesterday. We can choose differently if we want to consciously do it. Right? But unfortunately, we often don't do the work necessary to choose differently. We get, as the expression goes, in a groove, and then the groove becomes a rut, and we don't know how to get out. We don't know how to say, let's do this over. And this is how the brain works, okay? This is important to understand. If we want to change this, we have to understand how our brain works and how the quantum field works. So for the purposes of this talk, because I only have 20 minutes, I am going to really simplify this for you. Well, what happened to my timer either? So I'm going to really simplify this for you. And so please excuse anyone who's a scientist in the room. So there's first off, the first section of the brain I want to talk to you about is the neocortex. And it's the walnuts section of our brain that sits on the outside. And in that section of our brain is where we have our experiences, where they register. We see things, we know things, we experience the world. And that's where those new neural pathways can be made. Whoa, boy, can they be made. It's the intellect of the brain. It's the thinking brain. It's where we do our thinking. Part of the neocortex is the prefrontal lobe, which makes us so different, and which makes teenage boys really stupid, because theirs isn't finished, right? I have I just changed from no longer a teenage boy, but anyway, because that prefrontal cortex hasn't finished developing, teenagers frequently do stupid things, right? Because they don't have that regulation. But that's that part of our brain that thinks for us. So when we change our thoughts, we can sometimes watch in the real world as that thought changes. And that's why we use affirmative prayer. That's why we use affirmations around here. We teach that if you say a new affirmation, if you take on a new thought, you'll have a new result. But here's where it gets a little complicated. There's also another section of your brain called the limbic brain. And that's deeper inside, and it's where your feelings are registered. So it's your feeling brain. When you have an emotional reaction, your limbic brain remembers it. And so if you have anything that triggers that feeling again, maybe a smell, a look, a person, you can have an emotional reaction to that situation. And that is equally powerful. In fact, feelings can then cause thoughts. It used to be taught and believed that thoughts were primary, that you had a thought and then you had a feeling because you had a thought. Well, we know now that that's not true. You actually can have a feeling, and the feelings can cause thoughts. And sometimes they're overwhelmed. Sometimes you can have a feeling, something reminds you of something, and you have this feeling, and all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, this is going to go badly, I'm depressed, I'm sick. Literally makes you sick. I'm angry. I'm despondent. All because of a feeling is leading to your brain, leading to your thinking brain. And then there's one other section of the brain, and it's the cerebellum, and it's the seat of the unconsciousness, and it exists further in the back. So to make this work, you have to understand that your thinking brain and your feeling brain and your unconscious brain all exist. But in the seat of the unconscious brain, that's where you can, drive without thinking about how to drive. Do most of you just get in a car and turn it on and go, right? Have you ever pulled up in your driveway and have no memory of being on the road? That's because your cerebellum, excuse me, I can say this today, cerebellum has taken over, and you're riding unconsciously while you're doing something else. I had the experience back when I was a dancer. I remember this distinctly. I was dancing the bottle dance in Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway. It was the end of the dance. I'm down on my knees. We're doing these big knee crawls. I'm balancing a bottle on my head. It's for real, and I had no idea how I got there. Right? I had totally gone on autopilot. The dance was over. People were applauding. I must have been good. but I don't remember any of it. And that's the power of our unconscious. What happens, though, is that in many areas of our life we become unconscious, and we have behaviors and beliefs that are driven by our unconscious brain. To change that, we need to wake up. And we need to do one other thing. Because when we have thoughts that don't match our feelings or our behavior, it ends up being this chaos in our life. If you're thinking and holding a thought that I am prosperous, I am extremely prosperous, but in your heart you're feeling really poor, and your feelings are of that this is so unwinnable, you're so in despair, you're going to say that affirmation till the cows come home, and it's not going to change your reality because you're not in coherence. Your thinking and your feeling are doing this to each other constantly, and one is constantly messing the other one up, and you're in chaos. You're a jigsaw puzzle that cannot be put together because it's two different puzzles mashed together. We have to align our thinking and our feeling. And to do that, it doesn't mean you have to totally believe every aspect of your affirmation, but you can have a feeling. Has anyone ever changed how they were feeling? Right? I just did it just as the service started. I asked Dean, something went on with me. I was not in a good space. I was like, I said, Dean, service, I need to meditate for a minute. So while the whole first part of the service was going, I went into a meditation, and I noticed where my emotions were. And I consciously chose to shift them and to let them shift. And when that happened, I felt like, okay, now I can stand up and talk to you about this. That's the choice we get to use. If we really actually want to change who we are and break the habit of being ourselves, we must become coherent, aligning our thoughts and our feelings. Because when our thoughts and our feelings sync up, it's amazing what can go on, what can happen in our lives. So I want to ask you, does anyone here want their life to change? Does anyone want something, anything in their life to be changed? Does anyone want anything in the world to be changed? Right? So has yelling at it changed it? Has being mad at what the world is changed it? Or what that thing about yourself? I mean, if you're like me, I can beat myself up for stuff that happened 40 years ago. Right? Right? And it's like, and I catch my mind doing it and go, what the? Right? But in the quantum field, I can have a better result from a thing that happened 40 years ago. Like the story I told you at the beginning about the prayer field. I can think differently and shift my feelings about what happened 40 years ago and change the experience. So you can have a fabulous childhood. You can have a wonderful first marriage. You can have an incredible relationship. If you choose it today, right now, and align your feelings, your knowing with the truth of the situation, the power of your mind can shift it. When we align our thinking and our feelings, our being shifts. And we break the habit of being ourselves so that the real us, the bigger us, the larger us can emerge and be seen, can make a difference, can be at peace. I am tired. I am tired of thinking I'm not good enough. I am tired of thinking that someone did something to me. And that's the reason that this happened. And that's the reason that happened. I choose to stand in this moment, and I invite us all to stand in this moment and shift it, to see it, to know it clearly, and to let it out. Last week I talked to you about this, about the atom, and that we think again that the atom is this fixed, solid thing, that it's a nucleus and these electrons spin around it. When quantum mechanics and quantum physics tell us that mainly what it is energy, and that it only appears solid when we observe it. The electrons exist in all fields of possibility, every moment. And if you can master suffering in your life like I have, you can also master joy. And we all have our friends, right, who we know, oh God, they have suffering down, right? It's like, you're careful when you ask them, how you doing today? Right? But they're not the only ones. We all do it in some aspect of our lives. Just ask us the right question, and we'll tell you how bad it really is, right? So, this is not to throw stones, but to understand that it's just flipping the coin. If you've mastered suffering, you can master joy. You can take over the control of your own life. So let's take that to our meditation. Let's take that, and with a guided meditation, I'm going to teach you a simple technique to close your eyes and to shift your experience. If you're successful, if I'm successful, if we're successful in this together, when you come out, you'll feel different. And then the habitual practice over and over again will make new neural pathways, and you'll break the habit of being yourself.
When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray.
Right here and right now, we exist in this moment of infinite potential, ultimate possibility. For those of you who don't know this, in Unity we consider prayer and meditation to be synonymous. You can pray out loud, you can pray in silence. That the process of prayerful meditation is the most accelerated mind action known. And our founders over 100 years ago knew the quantum truth before the quantum truth was known. Right now, we get to choose. So if you're comfortable, I really invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath and check in with what you're feeling, where you are emotionally right now. Are you thinking this guy's wacko? Are you sad? Are you worried? Are you scared? Are you angry? Are you joyful? Peaceful? Just check in. And when you have your temperature, I'm going to invite you to remember a time of great joy in your life. happiness, overflowing. Maybe it was a puppy you got. Maybe it was the birth of your child, their first steps. Maybe it was your wedding day, your graduation day. Something that makes your heart sing and your skin tingle with excitement and anticipation. Remember that day completely. Remember the experience of that person's or that event's, the sounds, the voices, the laughter. Taste it. Feel it. Know it. And in that moment, bring it forward to right here and right now. That person, that event is right here today with you. Experience them or it as right now. You at your age, right now, reliving it. Not in the past, but in the present. See it. Know it. How would you react today? How would you hold on to that moment? What would you say now that you didn't say then? Let the joy out. Let the joy transform you. For it is happening right here and right now as you sit. There is no time other than we think there is. Right now, that joy, that feeling of bliss and happiness is permeating your body. So as you take a deep breath, I invite you to bring into your mind someone or something that has caused you stress, grief, and anxiety. And meet them or it with that joy and love that you are currently embodying. Bring your joy and your bliss, your happiness and your wholeness to the difficult situation. And let the difficult situation be met anew with a new you, with a whole you, with a peaceful and joy-filled you. Notice that when you shift, when you experience that situation or that person now, the situation has to change. So what happens when you show up today as you are? Live it out. See that person or that situation as it is today, not as it was last week, last year, or 20 years ago. See it today and meet it in the infinite realm of all potential. And when you have, step back and do it again. And embody more joy and more laughter and more love in your heart. And step forward again and meet that difficult situation with unlimited love and peace and joy. And again, let go of who you think you are to be all that you can be. Break the habit of being limited and meet your disease, meet your nemesis, meet your ex with love, with joy, with gratitude. In the silence. As we come out, we get to do this over and over again. This simple act rewires our brain, makes new possibilities appear. As simple as choosing anew, choosing again. We get to align ourselves with that power, that energy that we call God. The quantum God meets the quantum you.
When I pray,
I feel my heart go deeper, my love.
go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my love go deeper, my love go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray.
Let me take this time to remember that we can always reset. We can always change ourselves and the seeming past with a prayer, with a moment in time.